Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is, what if Naruto Uchiha became the savior of his clan? Ultimate Uchiha Harem. Tsunade, Mikoto, Kurenai, May, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Those were the last words of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, the sage of six paths, the creator. Since the beginning of time the human race had embroiled itself in conflicts of power, greed and ambition. It was a cycle of never-ending violence that was supposed to end when the sage taught humans the power of chakra. With that gift, he had wished to give peace, yet humans have an uncanny habit of destroying themselves on their own. The chakra that was supposed to unite became the catalyst for even greater violence between the sage's two sons, Indra and Ashura. If only Hagoromo had understood humanity's fault lay in its twisted emotions and granting them power would only embolden them. A proof of that claim itself was the conflict between the sage's sons which began over a simple matter of succession. Power. The sage who taught the world the importance of peace couldn't teach his own sons the same values. And that was the beginning of a massacre that went on for centuries. A massacre that still happened every day. Chakra was weaponized by the sage's elder son, Indra. Being the firstborn and more powerful among his father's sons, he considered it his lawful right to succeed his father. But the sage chose the younger brother and divided the brothers forever. Ashura, the younger brother, loved his brother but was a dutiful son of his father. He tried to make peace, but the sage insisted that Ashura be his successor. It divided the world. Those who believed in Indra and his lawful right pledged their families to him. And those who truly loved the sage above all pledged their loyalty to Ashura. And that started the infinite war. As time passed, both brothers fought against each other with their respective supporters, transforming their families into various ninja clans. The Uchiha and the Senju. Two opposite factions rose that battled against each other over the centuries long after the death of Indra and Ashura. The conflict became less a matter of rightful succession or fulfilling the sage's wish, but a matter of establishing dominance, pride and revenge. Peace never came for the various noble clans following these two houses had their own agenda and always continued to encourage war. Various powerful individuals, groups, nations started hiring these two factions for their own selfish motives. The Clan Wars era. This was the name of the current conflict going on between the two factions. When the war between Indra and Ashura had first started, most of the world had expected the elder son's faction to win, for he was more powerful and talented than his brother and his supporters. But the Senjus proved more resilient and intelligent than their elder siblings, for they secured alliances of several other factions to their cause with cooperation, marriage, money and other benefits. While the Uchiha, despite being the more powerful in combat, had one fatal flaw which they continued to inherit from their founder, Indra. Superiority. Following in Indra's footsteps and ideology, the Uchiha continued to believe in their skill, prowess and Sharingan. Fire bearers were they called, rumored to be descendants of dragons, ones destined either for unimaginable greatness or sheer madness. The Uchihas didn't form many alliances, unlike the Senju, believing the inferior and smaller clans owed their loyalty to Indra and his successors, that it was their duty to bow to their superiors. It led to their isolation, but despite that they continued to survive and fight, for their Sharingan prowess had no equal. Yet as the centuries passed and the conflicts increased, the Uchihas started to lose. Their power started to dwindle, with more and more clans joining the Senju, which only served to fuel the anger among the Uchihas. In their mad quest for power, they established the practice of clan members wedding their siblings or cousins to keep their bloodline pure. To prevent outsider blood from corrupting their future generations. So worse became their madness that any clan member wedding outside the clan was killed along with any children of theirs. Instead of killing their enemies, the Uchihas started killing themselves. The Senjus used this advantage to fully destroy the Uchiha to such extent that they were no longer worthy of being equal of the Senjus in power and dominance. The proud descendants of Indra continued to dwindle until another catastrophe struck them. The Sharingan vanished. It came as the worst devastation upon the warriors who prided themselves on their powerful eyes. Many researchers and doctors suggested inter-clan marriage the reason behind this phenomenon, others suggested the Uchihas were simply weakened along with many different reasons. Whatever the true reason, it didn't change the fact that the Sharingan was gone and nothing the Uchihas did manage to restart their prized dojutsu among their clan members. Another century passed and the Uchiha's fall continued to become worse and worse. It became clear to all. The House of Dragon was dying. Tajima Uchiha watched as a group of boys practiced their martial art exercises in the open green field. There were 5 of them, all wearing the same armor along with sharing another common trait. They were blood brothers. Tajima's 5 sons, heirs to House Uchiha. The proud father smiled on seeing his 2 eldest battling against each other in a deadly kenjutsu battle. Despite being only 8 years and 7 years old, Madara and Izuna were Taijima's pride. Their house might have lost their famed Sharingan and much of their dominance across the world. But it had not diminished the Uchiha's superiority in ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu and many others arts. They were proud warriors and their house still had enough numbers to continue their rightful war against the bloody Senjus. Tajima smiled when Madara unleashed a fireball towards his younger brother which was countered by a similar attack from Izuna. Madara was Tajima's firstborn and strongest son. He had inherited all of Tajima's strength and looks, he was a skilled warrior and worthy of leading the clan in the future. And unlike his younger brothers, he was not soft. Izuna was the second son, 7 of age, and successor of their house if Madara died. While not as strong as his brother, Izuna was loved by their clansmen. He was a good leader, efficient fighter and staunch supporter of all his brothers. Tajima watched his 3rd and 4th sons continue their shuriken practice together. The twins, Yashira and Anabi looked identical and shared their father's looks. They were young boys of 6 years and were decent fighters. Although they were too arrogant for their own good, a trait which Tajima worried would harm them on the battlefield. And there was his last and youngest son. Tajima couldn't help but be pained on seeing the young boy. Brown of hair and the fair complexion, he was the spitting image of his mother and Tajima's deceased wife, Hikari Uchiha. Naruto Uchiha, 5 of age, 5th and youngest of Tajima's sons was different from his elder brothers. It was not just the looks but what the boy represented that made him a pariah among his own family and the clan. Hikari had died giving birth to the boy and given him his name. Tajima had loved his wife dearly and it had broken him when she died. He had tried to be a dutiful father to his 5 motherless sons along with playing the part of the head of their ancient and noble house. A task made even more difficult with the Senju breathing down on their necks. Naruto grew up to be his mother's image. Kind of heart and a happy child who adored his elder brothers even if most of them despised him, blaming their mother's death on the child. Tajima had himself remained indifferent to his youngest son and only provided him the basic needs. Naruto was not as strong as his brothers, or had the strong will necessary of an Uchiha. He loved too much, forgave too much, and most of the time was oblivious to the world around him. Naruto would never be someone worthy and useful to the clan. The only reason Tajima hadn't disowned him was because of the fact that he needed heirs in this treacherous world where children died, and most of all because Hikari had made Tajima promise to look after the boy. With Tajima indifferent to the boy, the clan also lost all interest and ignored Naruto Uchiha. He was nothing but a spare heir and a weakling. The strong survive, the weak die. Tajima frowned when Yashara and Anabi mocked their youngest brother when he failed to produce a fireball and ended up coughing his lungs out. Bloody weakling, spat Anabi distastefully. Yashara went forward to bonk his coughing brother only to have a shadow step in between. Looking up, the third son of Tajima saw his elder brother standing before him with a sharp look in his dark eyes. "What are you doing?" asked Izuna, and narrowed his eyes when Yashara clenched his fists while glaring at a scared Naruto. "Teaching him a lesson. He is a weakling and a disgrace to our clan. Can't even form a simple fireball jutsu," said Yashara angrily, and flinched when Izuna gave him a cold look. "He is our brother," reminded Izuna. "He killed mother," yelled Anabi furiously. Izuna stepped forward, making his two young brothers take a step back. Tajima was about to move to intervene, when Madara sighed and grabbed the two angry children by their collars. "Come, I'll teach you a new jutsu beside the lake," proposed the eldest with a grin. "Really? Ni-san?" asked both the excited boys with joy in their eyes. Madara was their hero after all. "Yes. So go along now." The two brothers cheered and ran towards the lake to learn something new from their prodigal brother, completely ignoring their previous anger at their youngest sibling. Madara saw Izuna was still seething in anger and laid a hand on his shoulder. "Let it go, Izuna. They are kids," advised Madara, only to receive a heated glare from his closest sibling. "Naruto is our brother, Ni-san." Madara saw the scared and whimpering boy staring at them. He didn't hate him like Yashara and Anabi did, but he didn't love him as well. In this regard, Madara was just like his father, with both of them tolerating Naruto but not doing anything more. Izuna was the only one who cared for the boy and looked after him. "Fine. But don't try to play favorites, Izuna. Yashara and Anabi are our brothers as well," reminded Madara patiently. "So is Naruto." Madara sighed again. His brother was stubborn and would not relent. "Very well." With that, Madara was gone to join his two brothers waiting for him by the lake. Furious Izuna turned towards their father and saw the man giving him a firm look. "Do you have something to say, boy?" asked Tajima sternly, and watched the boy clench his fist shut. "No, father." Izuna turned away from his father and marched towards his youngest brother. The young boy glanced at him with watery eyes and Izuna flinched on seeing the burned lips. Gods, was he so stubborn? "Ni-san, can you teach me a jutsu, please?" asked the shy boy. "You are injured," said Izuna hesitantly, and saw the boy flinch when he tried to touch his burned lips. "No, I can fight. Just like you," proclaimed little Naruto with such confidence that broke Izuna's heart. But the truth was, Naruto couldn't perform ninjutsu well. Every Uchiha child had to perform a fireball jutsu as their rite of passage into adulthood at the age of 6. In a few weeks, the boy's birthday would come and he would be obligated to pass. However, Naruto was struggling. He was less skilled and hard-headed, which resulted into him getting injured most of the time. But if he failed the rite of passage, Izuna feared the boy would become even more hated among the clan, for the Uchiha never tolerated the weak. The only reason Naruto even had a comfortable life was because he was the son of the clan head. A despised son, but a son nonetheless. "I'll teach you but tomorrow. Now we need to heal your injuries," promised Izuna, but the brown-haired boy shook his head. "Now." Izuna smirked at the boy's childish demand to learn when he looked ready to fall over from exhaustion. It was why Izuna loved his youngest brother. He was a stubborn fool but a person who never gave up. A child who was determined to prove himself despite no support from his blood family. "Well, I can. But then I won't have time to treat you to ramen," said Izuna with a hidden smile. If possible, the child seemed to have regained his lost energy as he literally jumped in the air. All excited and completely forgetting the cold treatment given to him by his other brothers. Ramen! Yelled Naruto with a fist pumped in the air. Izuna chuckled at the display, feeling happy at seeing that smile. Naruto had that way about him. One smile from the boy could take away a day's worth of Izuna's fatigue. So when he offered his back, Izuna's youngest brother happily jumped and grabbed his neck affectionately. "You are the best, Ni-san!" yelled Naruto, nearly making Izuna go deaf. Gods! The boy was loud. How could an Uchiha be that? Izuna watched their father staring at them with a strange look in his eyes. The second son of Tajima simply gave a respectful nod to the man before starting his walk towards the town, happy to involve himself in the endless chattering of his youngest brother. Naruto observed the vast town built by his ancestors. It was so huge, so many lights, and with so many people trying to sell so many pretty things. He was so enraptured with the sight of new toys in a nearby shop, but he then remembered father telling them Uchiha played with swords, not wooden horses. Still, Izuna saw him staring at the wooden horse and bought it for him. For that gesture, he happily kissed his brother's cheek, earning a laugh from his favorite brother. Naruto felt happy whenever he was with him. Izuna never scolded him. Okay, maybe when he tried to sneak out at midnight outside the city walls. Those were the only times his brother had been furious with him, warning that the world was dangerous, especially for an Uchiha. Naruto didn't know why Izuna said that, but he obeyed his brother. Yashara and Anabi were always mean to him, making fun of him, even trying to hit him whenever they could. Madara would put a stop to that whenever he noticed, but his eldest brother never talked with him much. And it hurt. "Ni-san, does Madara ni hate me?" Izuna stared at him in surprise even as he continued taking them towards the infirmary to heal Naruto's burned lips. "No. Madara is busy. He is the heir to our house, our future leader. He just has a lot of stuff to do," said Izuna hesitantly. "He talks with Yashara and Anabi but not with me. I don't like him," said Naruto, his cheeks puffing red with anger. "Naru. No. I have you. I don't need him. Or stupid Yashi-chan or Ina Baka." Izuna chuckled a little at his brother's silly statement. At times he had to remind himself Naruto was still a child and yet to grow up. He was yet to see the battlefield, something all his brothers had already done so in varied fashions. Madara and Izuna had fought on the front lines, even Yashara and Anabi had fought under their father's guidance. Naruto was the youngest, and as much as Izuna hated to accept, he was not much strong. Maybe he would be if father and Madara gave him a chance, but that was unlikely to happen anytime soon. Their family had never been the same after mother died. Izuna loved all his brothers. He respected Madara, looked after Yashara and Anabi, but most of all he doted on his baby brother Naruto. People said he looked like mother, and Izuna wanted to believe that mother would like it if he looked after her youngest son. He finally managed to get Naruto to the infirmary and summoned a medic to heal his wounds. His brother was given instant attention, for they were the sons of their house's leader. Naruto was so happy playing with his wooden horse as the medic finished healing his burns and applied salve along with bandage. She even gave the young boy some toffees, earning a broad smile from the brown-haired boy. "Should we go for ramen?" asked Izuna. "Yes." Izuna smacked his forehead when his kid brother ran out of the infirmary, making two nurses lose their balance and fall on their butts. He apologized on his brother's behalf and ran after him. "Not so fast," warned Izuna. His warning was received a little late as Naruto bumped into some guards out for patrol. They were about to scold him but then noticed who he was and gave him scorned looks. Even those vanished when Izuna approached and glared at them. Izuna smirked when the guards flinched on seeing him. apologized to his brother and ran off. They know their place. Still, he went forward and bumped his brother lightly on the head, making him scowl. Hey, watch where you go, baby brother, admonished Izuna. Naruto huffed and placed his hands across his chest, sitting flat on his ass in the middle of the street. Izuna saw many ladies and girls swoon over the young boy and men giving him disapproving looks for such childish behavior. Izuna poked his forehead. Let's race, then, he said, uncaring about the disapproving looks from the Uchiha men. Naruto's smile could have brightened an entire city. Madara found his two brothers chatting and eating in the ramen stand. Well, it was Naruto gulping down his third bowl of ramen with Izuna watching him fondly. As he watched those two interact, Madara couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. He and Izuna were close as brothers, but the bond which Izuna shared with Naruto was something else. Madara didn't know what to feel towards his youngest brother. He was family, but Madara still had hazy memories of the day their mother died while giving birth to Naruto. He could still remember her asking him and Izuna, her eldest sons, to look after her remaining children. And Madara had tried to fulfill her wish. He had looked after Yashara and Anabi in life and war, but he was not there for Naruto. Maybe it was how similar he looked to their mother, or how innocent he was compared to their hard-hearted clan. Madara didn't know how to interact with the boy. He didn't want to be cruel to him like Yashara and Anabi, but he was not much enthusiastic to be close either. But one thing was sure, Naruto was an Uchiha and his brother. And Madara would protect him from any harm. He just didn't know how to talk with this child. He was not Izuna. With a sigh, he decided to do what he was told to. Izuna. His second brother turned towards him in surprise as Madara entered the ramen stand. Naruto paled and instantly buried his head in his half-empty ramen bowl. Madara let him be. Come join us, Ni-san, invited Izuna with a smile. Father wants you to accompany him to a meeting with the elders, informed Madara. Okay. Just let me drop Naru home and. Madara shook his head. Now. And don't argue because you know you cannot. Go. I'll take him home, offered Madara, and saw Izuna was not comfortable with the idea, but when father said something, you do it without any questions. Izuna nodded. Madara could see Naruto wanted to bolt as well, but Izuna whispered something to him that made the boy nod. Before leaving, the second son of Tajima turned towards his eldest. Try to talk with him, Madara. He is our brother, suggested Izuna kindly. Izuna. Takashi died 2 days ago on a mission. He was just 6, brother. What is your point? Asked Madara sharply. Life is too short for regrets, Ni-san. Madara was stunned and stood still even as his brother left. Izuna sometimes said things like this that showed his true intellect beyond his age. It made the eldest son of Tajima look at his youngest sibling for a long moment. With another sigh, Madara grabbed a seat beside the boy. Despite having an age difference of barely 3 years, Madara felt as if they were ages apart. The two of them were so different. Still, he had to try for Izuna's sake at least. Heard you got injured during training? Asked Madara in a calm manner. Yes, Ni-san. Just a little. Madara flinched on hearing the fear in the boy's voice. Had he terrified the boy that much? How goes your shuriken training? Asked Madara, and this time the boy beamed. Very good. I can hit 3 targets right in the center at once, replied Naruto excitedly. Madara grinned a little. Maybe his brother had some hope, after all. Would you like to show me when we reach home? I'm free for the rest of the day, suggested Madara. He could see the boy was nervous and decided to make him a little relaxed. If you prove what you say, I will teach you one jutsu. Madara paled on seeing the hungry look that arrived in Naruto's excited eyes. He wanted to learn from his eldest brother, whom people called a prodigy, had yearned for it for so long that it made Madara sad. I'll do it. Then you'll teach me a cool jutsu? Asked the boy. Yes. Before he could say anything, Naruto slammed the money for the food Izuna had left on the counter and dashed out. Madara banged his head against the table. How could he forget the little rascal liked to run a lot at every chance? He ran after his brother. Madara was impressed. Never had he imagined his youngest brother to have such skill. Naruto had always struggled with ninjutsu, which was shameful for an Uchiha, but the boy had another dangerous skill. He was skilled in kenjutsu. The way he held his tanto, his firm yet flexible stance, his excellent speed, and the way he made his weapon dance in the air. The fact that he was making Madara put real effort in the fight was a testimony of his skill. His little brother unleashed 3 shuriken from his pouch and threw them at Madara. The older brother easily deflected the attacks and saw his sibling use the precious second to get close. Madara anticipated a fast strike, but what happened next surprised him even more. His brother tried to sweep his legs. Madara jumped quickly in the air and brought his tanto downwards, eliciting a sharp sound as Naruto parried it with his own tanto. Madara launched a kick towards his opponent's chest, which the boy evaded at the last second. He was not given any respite as Madara unleashed a dozen shuriken towards him. Naruto in turn grabbed his similar weapons, jumped in the air and countered the attack by making every shuriken of his clash against his brother's. Flipping in the air, he aimed a pointed downwards slash of his tanto towards a surprised Madara, only to receive a reverse kick that sent him crashing across the ground and spit blood. He tried to rise back on his feet to show his brother that he was not yet done, but his chest hurt. You did good. Naruto smiled at the rare praise he received from his eldest brother. He even helped him get back on his feet and fulfilled his promise by showing him a jutsu that complemented his skills. You are good with weapons. Your accuracy is good, so let me teach you how to make your shuriken attack more deadly and longer in range, explained Madara. Naruto nodded dutifully. Madara showed him the hand seals, which were a set of 3 signs which Naruto learned quickly. Next, Madara advised him regarding the amount of chakra he had to use to make his attack more deadly. All sons of Tajima had already been taught chakra control exercises in hopes of making them true warriors at early age. And it was proving useful now. Naruto threw a single shuriken followed by performing the hand seals Madara had shown him while also infusing some chakra. He was surprised when his single shuriken turned into 7 more replicas and struck more targets. Good. Make your hand signs faster. On the battlefield a delay of even a second could cost you your life, warned Madara. Yes, Ni-san. Madara nodded and turned around to walk away now that his job was done when Naruto's words struck him. You do care about me. If not for his self-control, Madara didn't know what he would have done on hearing those words, so he chose a standard reply. You are my brother. As your eldest sibling, it is my duty to protect you. Naruto smiled at him happily. Madara couldn't understand why this boy was so happy. All he had done for him was teach him a simple jutsu which anyone else could have done as well. But the way Naruto was smiling showed as he was given a mountain full of gold. The boy was strange. He was distracted from his thoughts when he saw Izuna enter the compound and storm towards his room. He looked furious. Naruto, go get some rest in your room, commanded Madara. But, now, the boy huffed, earning a raised eyebrow from Madara. 2 seconds later Naruto instantly ran towards his room, earning a faint smile from Madara. Maybe Izuna was not so wrong about him. Still, he decided to let Izuna fume. When his second brother was angry, it was best to leave him alone, and Madara had a feeling as to who could have made him so. Yet he couldn't help but wonder why Izuna was so mad. A week later, Madara found his answer as he stood on the battlefield alongside a large number of his clansmen. and all his brothers. Tajima stood at the front of the 300-strong Uchiha force ready to face their sworn enemies. In front of him was the Great Tama River, a key strategic water source that was the lifeline of several nearby villages. One which had been controlled by the Senjus for more than a century, now soon to be in the possession of the Uchiha. Losing this river would harm the Senju's interests greatly and secure a key victory for the Uchihas, which would get them more contracts from the wealthy feudal lords who had been recently flocking to the Senju's more. He stared at his sons, all of whom were going to participate in the battle. Madara was composed and ready as he always was. Yashara and Anabi were eager to fight in order to kill their house's sworn enemies. Izuna was furious. The second son of Tajima, instead of standing beside his father, was standing protectively around his youngest brother. Naruto's face was a mixture of apprehension, fear and excitement. He was a child of 5 and normally it would be a few months before he joined his brothers in this endless conflict. But Tajima had seen Naruto's struggle with ninjutsu and doubted his son could learn the fireball jutsu before his rite of passage came. If he failed, it would dishonor their family amidst their clan. So Tajima had brought him here in hopes of making the green boy see what dangers awaited him and how he had to mend his ways to be a better Uchiha like his brothers were. If Naruto performed well, then their clan members might just ignore his lack of prowess in ninjutsu, and if he died, then at least he would die with honor and a tanto in hand. He would be a true Uchiha. Izuna had been furious with him and argued every day to revoke his decision, but Tajima had made his choice. His youngest son would either become a true Uchiha or die as one on this battlefield. Naruto, the nervous boy who had been biting his lip in silent anticipation, looked up at his favorite brother and saw him smile reassuringly. Stick them with the pointy end. Naruto smiled and nodded as he gripped his short tanto firmly in his 2 little hands. Soon enough he heard the war horns blowing across the other side of the river and saw movement inside the woods there. Moments later an army of warriors clad in armor rushed out with their swords and weapons. Their cries of war being returned by the Uchiha in equal fervor. As they charged, Naruto stuck to Izuna's side and noticed that while the enemy wore armor, his clansmen didn't have any such protection. Instead, the Uchihas wore their war clothes and rushed towards the battle. For some reason, Naruto found this strange and stupid. He was mesmerized when a black rain rose high in the sky and he noticed it was rain of kunai and shuriken descending down upon his side. The Uchihas deflected the incoming attacks with ease, but some were not fast enough to counter the massive storm raining from the skies and fell as blood gurgled out of their mangled bodies. Naruto watched in horror as his elder brother Anabi fell to the ground clutching his little throat where a sharp kunai lay buried. He stood motionless waiting for his mean older brother to get up, but Anabi continued to stay still even as a pool of red blood started forming around his corpse. His brother was dead. The battlefield was engulfed in chaos with the sounds of weapons clashing, men screaming, jutsu being unleashed filling the air. Men and women fought against each other trying to kill each other as viciously and savagely possible. Naruto saw Yashara cry in agony on watching his twin brother die. The older Uchiha roared fiercely, followed by leaping in the air to stab a teenage Senju in the belly. Yashara howled and slashed 2 more surprised Senjus, viciously hacking them to death before 3 swords pierced his torso. Yashara grinned weakly as he let one kunai fall from his pouch. There was an explosion that ripped Yashara to shreds along with the men who killed him. Naruto stood numb watching his second brother die as the blood and guts rained down on him. Anger. It surged through his body like a tidal wave as he grabbed his tanto and ran towards the nearest Senju. Ignoring the armored chest, Naruto viciously hacked at the man's knees, making a torrent of blood erupt along with the enemy's cry as he fell to the ground. The last thing he ever saw was Naruto's tanto being buried in his brain. Naruto had to deflect a dozen shuriken that were aimed to kill him. In his bloodlust, he charged forward, stepping over dead bodies and spilled guts. The Senju woman blinked when he jumped in the air, and she poorly tried to raise her weapon, but not fast enough as Naruto sliced her neck brutally. He hacked, he slashed. He ran, he fell. He stabbed, he parried. His mind was in a daze as he continued to kill isolated Senju warriors with the help of his clansmen, never showing them an ounce of mercy. Yashara and Anabi were always mean to him, but they were his brothers. And these bad men killed them. He whirled around as he sensed an incoming attack and managed to parry a Tonto from slicing his head off. He was finally snapped out of his rage and noticed it was a young girl. She had blonde hair that barely reached her shoulders, bright green eyes that were full of anger and fear. Her little body was covered in heavy Senju armor, and she was the same age as him. Naruto roared in anger, which made her flinch, and he used that moment to disarm her, followed by a vicious kick that sent her sprawling to the ground. Covered in blood and guts, eyes ablaze with righteous fury and Tonto dripped with red blood of his enemies, he charged towards his new enemy to end her life. He roared as he raised his weapon to stab her and stopped. For she was crying. Pure, crystal-like tears ran down her fair and chubby cheeks. Her green eyes staring at him with fear and a pleading. His hands shook as he saw her cry, a girl the same age as him, and he wanted to kill her. But then he noticed the Senju emblem on her armor and remembered her clansmen killing 2 of his brothers minutes ago. Tsunade. He looked up to see 4 angry young boys charging towards him. There was murder in their eyes as they saw Naruto's Tonto hovering above the little girl. With an angry snarl, Naruto met those 4 head-on, ignoring the defeated girl. The first to meet him was a silver-hair older boy with cold eyes that made Naruto shiver as they clashed their blades. He was stronger and pushed Naruto as the remaining boys closed in for the kill. Naruto's eyes widened, for he knew he wouldn't be able to evade. He would die just like Yashara had. Until there was a wild rush of air as a shadow jumped in between, battling away the blades of the Senju. "You will not kill my brother, Senju!" yelled Izuna furiously. Naruto smiled in relief when his brother kicked away the silver-haired boy that was pushing Naruto back. The Senjus narrowed their eyes on the new enemy as Izuna shot a quick glance at his brother. "Stay behind me, Naru." The little boy nodded and took up position behind his older brother. Izuna bared his sword forward as the Senju boys surrounded them. It was the silver-haired boy who charged again, with Izuna meeting him head-on. Naruto blocked the blades from the other 2 boys, one with half-black and half-white hair, and the other with brown hair. With all his strength, Naruto pushed the 2 Senjus, making them stumble a little. Suddenly another older Uchiha ran inside the battle, stabbing the brown-haired Senju through the neck from behind. Kawarama. The Senju crumpled to the ground as his oldest comrade, a boy of 10 with jet black hair, stabbed the older Uchiha in the chest with an anguished cry. The sudden death startled the fighters of both sides, including Izuna. Blood flew in the air as the silver-haired Senju swiped Izuna's sword away and stabbed him in the chest. Naruto cried for his brother, who grunted and punched his attacker, sending him stumbling away. The mixed-haired Senju boy tried to attack Izuna again, only to receive a swift strike across his eye that sent him crashing away, screaming in pain. Naruto ran towards his brother, managing to catch him in his little arms as they both fell to the ground. Izuna. The Senjus were already hovering near their dead comrade and the injured one who just lost an eye courtesy of Izuna's blade. Izuna coughed blood and gingerly pressed his trembling hand towards his chest, only to see it return soaked in blood. "His blood! Izuna!" cried Naruto. The second son of Tajima hazily glanced at his brother, who was crying hysterically. Izuna coughed but managed to smile and lay his bloodied hand on his sweet brother's cheek. It was all getting so dark. the noises of battle fading away and only his brother's cries filled Izuna's ears. He glanced at the boy whom he had loved more than anything in life and smiled. Be happy, little brother. Naruto froze when his brother's hand fell from his cheek, his chest went still and his eyes closed with that smile permanently etching across his face. Izuna, Ni-san, get up, please. I won't go outside the walls. I'll do whatever you say. Please. He cried, but Izuna didn't answer. He shook his brother again and again only to receive silence. Naruto gave out an anguished scream and buried his head in his brother's bloodied chest. His heavy sobs making his little body tremble, the noises of battle being blacked out. He cried so hard, he screamed, but Izuna never answered. No. He hesitantly looked up with his blood-stained face to see Madara standing a few feet away with a horrified expression etched across his own bloodied face. The eldest son of Tajima roared as a wave of chakra was unleashed from his body, sending every nearby warrior to their knees. The anger in Madara's eyes was enormous as he charged and sliced the nearest Senju in half. The younger Senjus who had attacked Naruto started backing away, carrying their dead and injured comrades farther away. Naruto saw dozens of older Senju had zeroed down on Madara and the threat he posed. And they were charging towards him. With strength he didn't think he ever had, Naruto got up and charged towards his last brother. He was not strong as his brothers, but he was faster than them. A skill he displayed as he sailed past older warriors, slashing their legs with his tanto mercilessly. Madara wreaked carnage across the battlefield, killing anything and anyone in his way with his sword, with large fireballs, and shuriken jutsu. Naruto protected his furious brother's rear with the help of other Uchihas who joined the carnage with righteous fury. To Madara, the Uchihas rallied to that battlecry with Naruto in the front of the new charge, following the lead of his eldest brother. It was as if a tidal wave had been unleashed as lines upon lines of Senju warriors were cut down. Madara's fury knew no bounds and no shinobi could stand against him. Those who tried lost their lives instantly. Naruto didn't know how long he fought or how many he killed or how many of his own clansmen died in the charge. He was so angry and hurt. Another horn sounded across the battlefield and seconds later the Senjus started to flee deep within the forests where they came from. Run, tree huggers! Yelled an Uchiha. Victory! Fire and blood! Naruto slumped to the ground gracelessly and lay there motionless. He felt a pain in his left arm and the left cheek of his face. But he didn't care, for Izuna was dead. Yashara and Anabi too. His brothers. Many Uchihas huddled around him and lifted him on their shoulders, calling him a hero, the young dragon, the brave. However, they had to clear a way as Madara came charging back with desperation evident in his eyes. His eyes finally zeroed in on his youngest and last living brother and he ran towards them. Naruto was still numb when he felt himself being lowered to the ground moments before a strong pair of arms grabbed him in a fierce hug. He slowly looked up to see it was Madara, who had tears falling from his eyes. Whatever differences the two brothers had in life were drowned in the pain they felt in this moment. Naruto slumped in Madara's arms and cried as his brother held him. It was this scene upon which Tajima Uchiha arrived and saw the gasps along with stunned looks on the faces of his clansmen. His own eyes widened on seeing his eldest and youngest son hugging each other, fiercely crying tears of sorrow. Impossible, whispered Tajima, as he stared into the eyes of his sons. They were red with tomos. The Sharingan was reborn. Madara walked silently with the rest of his clan as they saw the gates of their hometown approaching. The Uchihas were in a great mood, having achieved their single largest victory in a decade, and most of all having witnessed their famous bloodline being reborn. That had been the single reason that overwhelmed the losses they suffered. They might have achieved victory, but the price was too high. Madara had set out for battle with 300 of his clansmen and 4 of his brothers. Now he returned back with less than half of that army and the bodies of his 3 precious little brothers. His only solace was the fact that he hadn't lost all his siblings. His youngest brother was still in this world, and that gave Madara the strength to fight and protect him. He and Naruto had never been the best of friends, but after losing what they had, Madara couldn't help but be worried for the little boy. He was all Madara had left apart from their power-hungry father, who hadn't blinked an eye on seeing the bodies of 3 of his sons. They died with honor, and their sacrifice gave us the Sharingan back. There is no need to shed any tears, boys. Madara couldn't help but sigh in satisfaction on seeing his father sporting one black eye courtesy of Naruto. The little boy, who had acted so meek and submissive his entire life, had been enraged on hearing his father say such a thing when Izuna's corpse was not even cold yet. He had jumped before Madara could stop him. Even Tajima had never anticipated such a move until Naruto proved he was the blood of the dragon, and Tajima had enraged him. Tajima had not taken the insult kindly and tried to hit his son back, only to freeze to see the level of hatred and anger in those little Sharingan eyes. That hesitance had given Madara the time to pull his brother back and apologize on his behalf. The young dragon. Madara looked at his brother silently walking by his side, carrying with him the jar that held the ashes of their 3 brothers. The boy was so silent, his eyes so vacant, a permanent melancholy look etched in his young face. Madara had only watched the corpses of his brothers, but Naruto was the one who watched them die one after another in front of his eyes. Izuna's death had broken something in him, and yet it had ignited something dangerous as well. He was brought out of his thoughts by the roars and cheers from the mass of people waiting for them. Despite what he had suffered in the past week, Madara couldn't help but feel relief flood him at the sight of his home and his people. Tajima nodded at the cheers and started giving quite a promising speech of many more victories against the Senju. And when he introduced the rebirth of Sharingan among his 2 sons, the entire clan gasped. Madara was stunned to see the cheering that erupted on the announcement, which was even greater than the one of their victory. Some older and younger clansmen actually teared up on realizing their beloved Sharingan was back in their blood. It was a historical occasion. And his father was basking in all that praise and glory, his dark eyes shining with even greater ambition. He then pointed towards his 2 sons. My 2 sons achieved victory for us, and together they shall help our house conquer the whole world. Today, before the gods, pledge your loyalty and service to Madara Uchiha, the invincible dragon, and Naruto Uchiha, the young dragon. The future of House Uchiha. Madara's eyes slightly widened when, without hesitation, his entire clan knelt as he stepped forward. When he activated his Sharingan, he saw all their hopes and dreams with his new eyes. They were trusting him to win their lost glory back and get them justice. And he would not fail them. He looked at his father and saw the man staring at him with absolute pride and confidence. Madara remembered seeing his brothers and his clansmen dying at the hands of those bastard Senjus and felt his anger along with determination rise. I will bring fire and blood to the Senjus. He roared, raising his sword in the air. The clan roared alongside him and praised him over and over. It was then time for his brother to step forward, the baby of their family, one who was always overlooked by the clan but now was the center of their attention. But one look in Naruto's eyes showed Madara his brother was different. His next words proved that, we lost nearly 150 of our people in this battle, including 3 of my brothers, said Naruto sadly, as Tajima felt his blood boil. The people will sing songs about their sacrifice, rebuffed Tajima, and saw the disappointment in his son's eyes. Yes. But my brothers and our dead warriors will never hear them. That struck each and every person of their clan as they stared at the numerous jars containing the ashes of their fallen. The excitement died down as people realized the price that was paid. And Naruto stepped forward. We fought without strategy like wild animals. We fought without armor believing in our superiority. We are powerful warriors but we are men as well. We bleed and die just like the Senju. If not for the sacrifice of my brothers and Madara Ni-san's courage we would have lost, explained Naruto honestly, much to the shock, horror and bitterness that emerged in their people. That's enough, boy, growled Tajima. He was utterly silenced when Naruto activated his two-tomo Sharingan and glared at him. The boys swiftly turned towards their people who were just given a tight slap of reality, destroying every plan Tajima had made for the near future. One victory does not make us conquerors. This war is far from over, and if we are to defeat the Senju we have to fight smarter. We have to outsmart them both on the battlefield and off it as well. We are Uchiha, the strongest and most noble house of this world. We are the blood of the dragon, and together we shall regain all that we have lost, but only if we fight together, only if we learn from our mistakes. The little boy yelled like the dragon he was. Stunned silence prevailed as Naruto unleashed his tanto to raise it in the air. The sheer amount of determination and courage in those Sharingan eyes drew the complete attention of the entire clan, much to Tajima and Madara's surprise. Are you with me? Madara feared his brother had spoken too much truth their people were not ready to hear. But he was proven wrong, when there was movement from amongst the warriors who had fought on the battlefield. Madara recognized the three boys who were the first to kneel, followed by several dozen others. Naruto-sama speaks truly and I believe him. My sword is yours to command, now and always, promised Shisui Uchiha, earning a nod from the surprised young boy who had not expected any support. I pledge my life to you, young dragon, promised Itachi Uchiha. The last boy raised his sword, making the rest of the clan follow swiftly. The young dragon, yelled Kagami Uchiha. Naruto remained still, watching his people pledge him their loyalty fully without any hesitation. Tajima was fuming, but it was Madara whose eyes widened as he saw a glimpse of someone in his little brother. Izuna. His youngest brother was not weak, for he had inherited Izuna's will. And as the eldest, Madara had to protect him, for Naruto was his youngest and only brother from this day. With a smile, Madara joined his people to support his brother for the first time in his life. Tajima watched his young son standing alone near the lake. It was a far cry from the inspiring leader who had started to win the support of their people. Madara was starting to gain popularity among the older generation, but Naruto had also developed quite a following among the younger ones, with the heirs of three powerful Uchiha families pledging their lives to him. Naruto was different. He always had been from the moment he learned to speak. That boy, he is something else, isn't he? Asked a soft voice. Tajima turned to face his only sibling still left in this world. Naori was still beautiful as ever, with long flowing purple hair that reached her waist. Her skin was fairer than that of Tajima's, and her hourglass figure had made her quite desired by many in their clan. Yet she had not married despite reaching the age of 19. He himself was only 26 years old, which was quite old in their world where not many lived past the age of 30 due to the constant warfare. His sister had inherited all the grace and beauty of their mother, while Tajima had followed his own father to become the current leader of their house. Naori had been a fighter once until she lost her only lover against the Sarutobi clan. It made her lose the will to fight and she retired. But despite Tajima's worries, she had proven herself quite useful by managing the administration of their clan. She was also the representative of their clan among their few allies and was often away for months to keep those alliances breathing. And he only allowed himself to relax around her. So when she placed her hand on his arm and hugged him, Tajima didn't resist. For only now, when it was just him and his sister, did he allow himself to remember his three sons who had perished. They had died as true shinobi and he would make sure their sacrifice would be remembered by their people. I'm sorry, brother, she whispered sadly. Do not dishonor my sons, Naori warned Tajima, but his tone was neither harsh or cold. They were boys, brother. He gently broke the hug and looked at her closely. She should be already married by now, giving birth to their next generation. But then again, his sister had always been a wild one and only her lover's death had stolen her fire. In that way, she was not much different from Naruto as they both did what they wanted. She touched his swollen eye and laughed as he told her Naruto had hit him. Tajima's eyes twitched. You find this funny? He growled irritatedly. You only have yourself to blame, brother. Never provoke a dragon, much less an enraged one, she chastised, glancing at her nephew who brooded all alone. Tajima scoffed. He's young and foolish. She looked at him pointedly for such a long time until he finally sighed and admitted another true fact. But he has a sharp mind. He infuriates so much, but he is a dragon indeed. I never thought my youngest would awaken our prized eyes and it gives me hope for him. But he is terrible with ninjutsu, said Tajima bitterly. He narrowed his eyes when his dear sister got that same amused twinkle in her eyes. Brother, you can be quite dense at times, she teased. Watch it, he warned, as she raised an eyebrow. Or what? You'll harm me, your only sister. Tajima grit his teeth so hard but didn't say anything else. Because she was right, despite the faults of their house, their one great quality was that they truly cared about the ones dearest to them. It had often led them to great follies and suffering, but it had also kept the Uchiha stronger. The Senjus were not the only ones who knew love for their own kind. The Uchihas simply found it difficult to express such emotions due to their rigid customs and hard-hearted society. And it was more evident to Tajima with his relationship with Naruto. Madara is your heir and the right one to lead the clan in the future. But he'll need his brother, now more than ever. However, the boys are different. You take Madara under your tutelage, and I'll take Naruto under mine, she offered. No, they are my sons, and I will train them, he said firmly, but she simply pointed at his blackened eye gifted to him by his youngest son. Young dragons are dangerous creatures, brother. You have done well by Madara and the rest of your sons, but Naruto is wild. He is more like me, and the more you try to suppress him, the more he'll rebel and burn everyone around him. He needs a different touch, she insisted, as he grunted. You'll only make him more soft. The icy stare he received from his sister made him regret his words. A large portion of his power came from the alliances and trade relationships she maintained for their house, bringing in money, resources and support that helped them fight against the Senjus. Naori was gentle and kind but was ruthless to those who crossed her. Including her brother. I'm sorry, he said reluctantly. She gave him an easy smile that made his bitterness go away. Naori never gloated about the power she held in her hands and was simply content in supporting him from the shadows provided he gave her the respect she deserved. They were completely different, but that didn't make him love her any less. Fine. Handle the boy. Gods know I cannot, he muttered, earning a brief chuckle from her. I promise, brother. Madara found him still sitting near that lake even after the moon had arrived in the cloudy sky. The little boy tensed on sensing the approaching presence but relaxed a little on seeing it was his older brother. He took a seat beside the boy who still didn't say a word, so Madara pressed a lunch box in his arms. Eat, he insisted. I'm not hungry, protested Naruto, and noticed a similar lunch box in his older brother's lap. Madara's eyebrows twitched at the defiance, but then again he had not expected anything else. His brother was stubborn, after all. Izuna would have known how to make him accept, but he was gone now. And now it left Madara the responsibility of looking after this child. Fine. Then I'm not eating either, he growled, and threw his lunch box in the lake. Naruto's eyes comically widened as he gasped, which soon turned into an angry growl as he glared at his brother. An act that would have seemed alien to him not a few days ago, but they were not the same boys anymore. Baka. Aniki. He spat, which only made Madara grin wide as he laid himself down flat on the wooden bridge. If you don't want to eat, fine. But I'm not eating either without you. I don't care. Madara chuckled at Naruto's childish rant as he cursed him several times. It made him forget the pain of missing his dead brothers. And maybe Naruto felt the same. Still, Naruto proved his stubbornness by not touching his lunchbox Madara brought for him. That was until his stomach growled loudly. The boy's cheeks flushed red as he looked away from Madara's laughing face. He affectionately ruffled the boy's hair in an effort to make him look back. Izuna, I said I don't. His voice died in his throat as he saw it was Madara staring back at him with sadness in his eyes. The two brothers went silent for several long moments until Naruto opened the lunch box and offered the refreshing food to Madara. The boy was still not meeting Madara's eyes, but the gesture said it all. With a smile, Madara picked up the spoon and grabbed the rice. But instead of eating it himself as Naruto wanted, he presented the food to the boy. Naruto gave him a glare in return, but Madara didn't budge. The aroma of fresh food was too much for the small child who had not eaten anything since morning, and he finally took his first morsel. They ate in silence, with Madara helping Naruto eat and doing the same for himself. It gave him peace and forget about his own pain as he focused on his sibling. But Naruto's next question surprised him. Brother, is there a way to bring them back? A jutsu? A technique? Asked the hopeful child, looking at his prodigal brother with such desperation that made Madara sad. They're all gone, Naru. I'm sorry. He truly felt awful for dashing the boy's hopes, but Madara himself knew it was not possible. Their brothers were dead, their bodies reduced to ashes as custom demanded. I miss them, he whispered. Even Anabi and Yashara? Asked Madara curiously, knowing the twins had not been kind to the boy. Yes. They were my brothers, all of them. Madara's heart melted on hearing those simple words, and he put the lunch box aside to wrap his arm around his young brother to bring him close. To his surprise, Naruto didn't relent and buried himself in Madara's side. I miss them too. And I am sorry for not being there for you, said Madara, now realizing he had been wrong in ignoring his little brother for so long. Naruto didn't say anything, which made Madara panic. Just don't leave me. Madara fought back his own tears as he gripped his little brother even more closer. Never, he promised. Yet even as he said that, an amused grin arrived on his lips, one which Naruto didn't fail to notice. Quit getting depressed and brooding all the time, or I'll bonk you on the head, teased Madara, only to receive a smirk from his brother. How will you even hit me when you're fat and slow? Madara blinked and looked at his own body to actually see if he had gained some weight, only to find his normal lean and fit body. He also realized the weight of his brother on his side disappearing, followed by a little rock hitting his head. Madara's eyes twitched on seeing his little brother standing in the lake, laughing his ass off at the trick he had played on his older brother. You brat! Naruto yelped as Madara roared and charged after him. He ran faster and faster, but Madara finally jumped on him, making them lose their chakra control as they both ended up crashing into the cold lake. He swam back to the surface and gasped fresh air, only to see Madara waiting for him. He gulped. But his brother laughed. And Naruto laughed alongside him, forgetting about the pain in their respective hearts. Unknown to both brothers, Naori and Tajima smiled from their position in the trees. Next day, Naruto was surprised on seeing her. He barely had hazy memories of his aunt in his short life. He remembered her flowery scent and kind eyes, her telling him stories at nights even if those occasions were rare and few. He remembered crying for her when she was gone. Izuna had said she would come back someday, but he had not believed it. And he had forgotten about her, which made him feel guilty. At least her smile was kind and welcoming as she gently cupped his cheek. "You've grown up quite a lot," she commented. "Hi." Naori frowned at his obedient reply. It was not the nephew she remembered, but then again she had been away for nearly 2 years, and knowing Tajima, this boy would have rarely had any interactions with the opposite. She cursed her rigid brother again because her task had been made only more tougher. It would have been nice if this awkwardness didn't exist between them. "Since you have awakened your Sharingan, Tajima has seen fit that I take over your training while he does the same for Madara," she said patiently, as his face fell. "Oh," was all he said, unable to hide feeling betrayed for his father ignoring him again in favor of his older brothers. But he shouldn't have expected anything else. Naori knelt to his level and gently grabbed his cheeks, making him look in her eyes. She found it hard to believe that there was so much kindness still left in him despite what he had seen. "He wanted to train you both together, but I asked you for myself," she said with a smile, as his eyes widened in surprise and a flare of hope. It pained her to see him grasping for little crumbs of affection and care from his own family, but it only made her more determined to change this mistake. "Really, Oba-san?" asked Naruto, and saw her eyebrows twitch at the term he used. She was freaking 19. "Yes. And you'll call me Naori only," she informed. "But," she poked his forehead, earning a yelp followed by a scowl from him which turned into a mischievous grin as he did the same to her with his little finger. Naori grinned on seeing his triumphant expression. Maybe her wild nephew was still alive in there after all. "I'm glad you are back. I missed you," he said happily. "So am I." She hugged him, thinking her own child would have had the same brown hair as him if Atami had lived. It pained her every day thinking about her dead lover and the family they had wanted to have. When they parted, she presented him with a slip of paper which he looked at curiously. "What is it?" he asked. "Tajima told me about your problems with fire ninjutsu." He cringed and looked away in shame, but she gripped his hand, making him look back at her. "It's not necessary for everyone to have the same chakra types. Not all Uchiha are fire masters," she suggested, earning a frown from him. "But I'm a dragon." She laughed kindly at his silly remark. Her clan's obsession with hailing themselves as descendants of that mythical creature who may or may not have existed was quite strong. "Well, little dragon, then I'd like you to pour your chakra into the paper," she instructed. "Why?" He gulped when her eyebrows twitched in annoyance, but unlike his twin older brothers, she didn't bonk him on the head. "Just do it, please. You'll be surprised." "Okay." He hesitantly poured some of his chakra into the strange paper, clearly worried and excited about the results. He frowned when half of the paper became wet and the other half wrinkled. Looking back at his aunt, he saw she seemed quite surprised. "What does it mean?" he asked curiously. "It means you are a water and lightning type user. You can still use the other 3 types of chakra and their jutsu, but it will be challenging. But water and lightning are your strength, something you can truly master," she explained. "But shouldn't an Uchiha be a fire user?" questioned Naruto with a frown. "Silly, if all of us were fire users, then it would be easy for the enemy to defeat us. We need to have diversity in our ranks and the attacks. Madara is an exceptional fire and wind user. With this, you can complement your brother on the battlefield and have his back." Naori saw that her careful explanation had an impact on him as his frown disappeared. He still wanted to master fire, but linking his ability over water and lightning to that of protecting his older brother had made him more accepting of his different power. "What type are you?" "Fire and lightning. But I know some good water jutsu as well, however mastering them will be your job." But I don't see why with your Sharingan you can have much difficulty. Then let's get to work. Naori blinked when he yelled excitedly before running towards the lake to start his training. Gods, the boy was hyperactive, but it could also prove beneficial for his training. What she had also wanted to tell him was that apart from his training in combat, she would also be taking over his teaching in matters of clan politics and art of diplomacy. Something which Tajima could not teach his sons in 1,000 years. Madara did not have the patience or tact for the soft skills, he was more of a warrior. But Naruto had a way with words, and this ability, if molded properly, could prove beneficial to their clan in the future. Madara would be the next leader of their clan, but if the Uchiha were to win, he would need his diplomatic and reasonable brother to gather new allies and also turn lost ones back to their side. It was the only way they could weaken and defeat the Senju. With those thoughts in mind, Naori walked towards her nephew, in whom she could see her successor. Naori watched in surprise as her nephew followed her hand seals perfectly without a single mistake. His dark red eyes intently staring at her movements and capturing them magnificently. She had heard stories about the Sharingan and its power, but now she was seeing it in reality. She launched a small water dragon in his direction, and he replicated her action by launching a smaller version of his own water dragon. The two beasts clashed ferociously, but his power over water won out as her beast was defeated. Still, she didn't give him any rest by charging in straight for him. Their blades clashed next, and she put in a lot of her strength, yet he parried her blows with ease. He didn't try to overwhelm her, for it was pointless due to her superior strength, but his speed was dangerous. He knew he was smaller and was using it to his advantage by aiming for her legs and even her. Ruthless. Suddenly he went for her legs, making her jump in the air in reflex. That was when she made the mistake of gazing in his eyes. She froze. The next second a blade was pointed at her heart, and his triumphant grin clearly visible on his face. I win. Is that so? He froze as her voice resonated from behind him, and a sharp blade was pointed at his neck. The Naori in front of him vanished into smoke. Shadow clone. Damn it! He cursed, earning a bop on the head. You did well. But you lack experience. Don't get just because you have the Sharingan, for your enemy will always have their own tricks. And always make sure you take an enemy's head off on first chance. Limbs and organs can be lost, yet they cannot stop a warrior from fighting. But a head gone would be their end, she warned, removing her kunai from his neck. He turned back to see her soaked from head to toe. Her long purple hair completely wet and her dress hugging tightly to her womanly figure. He blushed and looked away. Naori raised an eyebrow at his reaction even more when he turned away. Naruto, what are you doing? She asked seriously. Well, it's not honorable to, he stuttered, making her grin. Who would have thought the little brat had decency unlike most males of her clan? But his honor was his flaw and could get him killed. Have you seen a woman naked? She inquired, wondering what her brother had trained his boys in. Kunoichi had been the death of many great warriors with their seduction. No, it's gross. She couldn't hold back her laugh on hearing his comment. Such a child, one day he would regret saying such a thing and say the opposite. Naori was sure, but that was for another time. Yet she couldn't resist her chance to tease him more. He was adorable. Why do you think so? She could feel him scowl on being prodded further on this uncomfortable topic. So she sweetened the deal. Answer me and I'll teach you something new, she offered, and he hesitantly turned back. His eyes still on the lake beneath them. The boy loved to learn more. I don't know, your chest is weird, and Anabi said, you don't have. He blushed crimson, unable to finish his words despite her generous offer. Naori smirked but gently patted his head. All right. Maybe someday you will change your opinion. But always be wary of women, Naruto. They can give life but take it back as well. You are honorable in that aspect and I want you to remain the same for it will prevent you from making any mistakes, she warned. Hi, he replied, not understanding her full meaning but deciding to follow her advice nonetheless. She saw the afternoon sun shining brightly along with the groan of his stomach as he scratched the back of his head. Come, we'll have lunch, she offered, as his eyes lit up. Ramen. She smacked her forehead at his unhealthy obsession. Izuna had spoiled him limitlessly in this area. No, you fool. Something healthy that will allow your body to grow big and strong like Madara. You want that, don't you? She asked seriously, knowing she always had to link her demands to his benefit or he would protest. Stubborn child. He sighed. All right. Good. After that we'll have our academic lessons, she grinned. What? Midnight. Sneaking out of town had always been a fun activity for him. Managing to get past the guards who always boasted that none could enter or leave without their permission made him laugh. The only drawback was that it had made Izuna worried, which was why he didn't do this more often. But his brother was gone. And Naruto was trying to live again. He enjoyed the growing affection Madara showed towards him and the return of his aunt had started to fill the void in his heart. Naori was kind to him but quite strict when it came to his training. She was bold and didn't hesitate in making him uncomfortable with her body or her abhorring love of books. He still shuddered on remembering spending his entire afternoon learning about different ninja clans and their histories. Who led those clans, their children's names and what parts of the world they controlled. The information was too much for him to remember but Naori was adamant that he learn it. When he had argued they had servants to remember such information she had bonked him so hard that it still hurt. He had fallen in line after that and she rewarded his cooperation by taking him to eat ice cream with her. He ran through the vast forests enjoying the feel of cold air hitting his skin. The sound of leaves rustling and little animals scurrying away from him made him laugh. This was the true meaning of freedom. Here in the wild, he didn't have to pretend. Didn't have to mind his manners and choose each word carefully. He could say anything, do anything, and it gave him immense joy. His father didn't care where he was and it would not matter if he was home by morning. Madara was a deep sleeper and always slept in his personal chambers, so there was no chance of his brother discovering him missing from their home. Naori was busy doing some work and he doubted she would find the need to see him this late at night. Izuna had been the only one who worried and made sure he was in his bed at most times. Naruto stopped his run as the memory of his brother's last breath hit him again. Be happy, little brother. Madara had warned him not to dwell in sorrow too much and being around Naori helped. Yet he also missed Izuna's smile, their ramen meals and long walks across town. He missed the piggyback rides his brother always offered him despite the frowns that earned him from the other clansmen. He fought back the tears and ran fast uncaring of where he was stepping. Only if he had been faster, only if he had been stronger. His brothers would still be alive. Why had he been so weak? Snap. He yelped in pain as the tree branch beneath his feet broke sending him tumbling down the small hill. He tried to catch some grip in order to stop his fall and felt terror seep in his heart as the deep valley started getting closer and closer. But there was nothing to grab, nothing to stop his descent to death and his heart stopped when he felt the ground going missing from beneath him. He closed his eyes not wanting to see himself die a horrible death. It was all so dark and cold as he continued to fall. He didn't know what took over him but he opened his eyes only to see his life flash before his eyes. All the good and bad times, the memories of his brothers, their victories and defeats, tears and joys. Maybe he would see them again soon enough. However, all those thoughts vanished from his mind as in the darkness he saw something. It was distant but growing larger and larger. His eyes widened in horror as he saw something that stopped his heart. The pair of deep red eyes full of hatred. He stared in shock right into the pair of deep red eyes burning with so much hatred and anger. In that moment, he knew his death would be much more horrible and painful than he originally imagined. Yet even as his final moments tickled by and he approached closer and closer to the rising form hidden in the dark shadows bubbling with a monstrous amount of negativity, something within him snapped. "You're the blood of the dragon." He remembered his father's words to his older brothers whenever they encountered something impossible to accomplish. Those words had always excited Anabi and Yashara, and made Izuna as well as Madara become more bolder. But he had never understood the meaning behind those simple and silly words. Yet as death came his way, it was those same simple and silly words that gave him strength. A dragon never surrenders, a dragon never bows to anyone, a dragon fights and fights until he defeats his enemies. Grabbing twin sharp kunais from his pouch, he sent them flying towards the nearby rock walls but not before tying ninja wire on them. For once, he was thankful of Izuna's warnings to always be prepared even if he just went out for a stroll near their clan's borders. As the weapons connected, he gripped one end of the strings that made him fly straight towards the nearby rock. When his feet connected to the hard surface, he was ready and immediately channeled chakra that made him stick firmly to the surface. He unleashed his tanto just in time as the creature beneath him growled angrily that sent tremors across the darkened valley. His eyes widened when a massive tail rose from the shadows aimed right at him. Determined to survive, he sprinted down the rock surface at speeds he never thought himself capable of. Massive chunks of rocks and debris flew over him as the tail shattered the spot where he was previously standing. His enemy was more smart than he originally thought as it continued lashing out more and more giant tails in an effort to splatter his brains, but he had always been faster than all of his brothers. And despite his wish of seeing his dead brothers again, he now realized Madara would be heartbroken if he died. His eldest brother was not bad, even if he had been distant all these years. And Madara had showed that he truly cared about him, and now he wanted to know his eldest and only living brother, to support him, to protect him just as Izuna had protected him. And for that one wish he would not give up. He would find a way to survive no matter who or what he would have to face. Going back up was not possible, for the creature was hell-bent on stopping that possibility, so that left him only one choice. As the ground neared to his relief, he made a quick jump, narrowly avoiding being smashed to death courtesy of another tail. He immediately adopted his battle stance and activated his prized dojutsu, glaring out at the massive creature. And what he saw both stunned and terrified him. And it seemed he was not the only one to experience those feelings as the now revealed beast flinched as his terrifying red eyes saw its enemy. Those eyes. Its voice was even more heavy and rumbled across the empty valley as a battle cry. Despite the rising fear in his heart, Naruto gripped his tanto firmly, glaring down at the massive nine-tailed fox standing in front of him. And Uchiha, if possible, the hate and anger in the monster's eyes increased tenfold as it snarled. "Are you going to attack me again?" asked the boy in an unnervingly calm voice. The fox momentarily paused, staring at the little runt, and was surprised when the brat had not tried to flee. Either he was foolish like most kids were, especially those of his mad clan, or he was more bold than Kurama had imagined. "You're not afraid." It was just a statement from the fox, but evoked not a single reaction from the stoic boy. When the monstrous animal glared harder at the insect before him, it was then the child spoke. "I am a shinobi. I won't kill you if you let me go, but if you persist then I will fight you," answered the boy fiercely. The beast laughed. "What makes you think a stupid runt like you can even harm a scratch on me?" I can crush you in a flash, brat, mocked the fox. Maybe. But I will still fight with all I've got. Why? Asked the curious fox. Because I don't want to die. The beast again laughed at the pitiful answer expected from every human, yet the boy's gaze unnerved him, for he neither exploded in anger or even scowled. He stared back at the fox with the same determined gaze which made the fox curious. Most people would have pissed themselves, fought back, or just tried to run away. This little one had done none of that. You will die, either by my hands or some other moron shinobi out there. Children like you don't survive long in this world, yet you still fight. Why? Asked the fox curiously, momentarily keeping his desire to crush the boy at bay if only to find his answer. It had been quite a while since another foolish human crossed his path or tried to attack him. My brother would be sad if I died. And I don't want him to be sad again. Not anymore, answered the boy quietly. The fox became silent, staring at the boy with a gaze the little Uchiha could not understand. Just when he thought the beast was about to attack again, it spoke. You are already cursed enough to be born into that mad cult you call a clan. What's worse, you inherited these wretched eyes when I thought I would never see this power again in my life. You think they will make you powerful. All these eyes have ever brought to its wielder is misery and pain. It would actually be a mercy if I killed you here, said the fox frankly. The boy didn't say a word and only pointed his tanto forward, which made the beast scoff. Go. I spare your pitiful life, mocked the fox. Naruto blinked in surprise, knowing that he was probably given a once-in-a-lifetime chance, something this beast would not have given to anyone else. Yet he didn't want to turn his back to the fox only to be stabbed from behind. The creature must have recognized the look, making it snarl. I am not showing you mercy, stupid boy. Anybody who has ever wielded the Sharingan before never met a good fate, they all die screaming in pain. A day will come when you will wish that I killed you here, warned the fox. We'll see about that, replied Naruto sharply. Hey, you've got some balls. Pretty impressive for a shitty little brat, said the amused fox. I will not tell anyone about this meeting or the fact that you live here so close to our borders. You have my word, said Naruto honestly, placing his weapon back in its sheath. When he stared back at the fox, if possible it seemed even more disappointed than before. Not only do you belong from a mad clan, but you are an even bigger fool with that sense of loyalty and honor that you have towards your clan. Does that make you feel better? Snarled the fox, receiving an icy stare from the boy. Maybe my family is mad and I am too. But without my loyalty and honor, what is the difference between you and me? I will fight and die for my family no matter how bad you say they are. What do you fight for? Asked Naruto harshly. The air around them grew thick with hatred and anger as the fox looked down at the ground, hissing fiercely. Go. Before I decide to kill you. Naruto didn't need any more warning as he jumped on the rock surface and instantly started running back towards the surface at great speed. And as he continued to run away, he missed the fox staring back at his disappearing form with a heavy frown. Foolish boy. He didn't stop running even when he climbed out of the dark valley, his legs refusing to stop as he sailed past trees at great speed. His heart threatened to burst out of his chest, and he was sweating profusely as he continued to remember just what he had encountered moments ago. More importantly, he had survived by some truly awesome luck. For there was no way in hell he could have defeated that monster, not even Madara, any other Uchiha, or even his own father could defeat that beast. He had felt that unending sea of vile chakra in that beast, felt its hate, the anger, the desire to murder. Not even the entire Uchiha clan combined could defeat that monster. It was the reason why he had promised not to tell the fox's location to anyone lest any idiots come out there to try to enslave the monster only to get themselves killed. If things had turned out differently, he would have been forced to fight the fox. And he would have died, there was no doubt about that. But strangely, the beast had spared his life and his words. What did he mean the Uchihas were mad? Sure, his family was too uptight and arrogant, but they couldn't be insane. He refused to believe that, no matter what that stupid fox said. The Sharingan only brings pain and misery. All he had ever heard from every single Uchiha was how great this power was, or how lucky Naruto was to awaken it. But if he could trade these eyes for his dead brothers, Naruto would do so in a heartbeat, for the pain of losing them haunted him every moment over whatever power these eyes gave him. It was not worth it. And as he realized that fact, he knew there was some bitter truth in the fox's words. And there was a hell of a lot of things Naruto didn't know about his dojutsu, his clan, or even what type of dangerous monsters lurked in the real and dangerous world. All these years he had lived a sheltered and protected life under Izuna's watch, but now that veil was dropping very fast. He had already seen the barbarism and murder humans were capable of inflicting on each other, the pain of losing your loved ones right before your very eyes, the power of hatred that could drive even the most noble or weakest man to momentary insanity, of men's unending desire for ever more power and greater ambition. Finally, he stopped as he reached the clan settlement and the secret passage he had created for himself over the years. His head was spinning from all these overbearing thoughts, but if one thing was certain was the fact that the Uchiha clan was his family. The strange but caring Madara was his brother, attractive but strict Naori his aunt, and ambitious and cold Tajima his father. Walking towards a nearby tree, the boy knelt and placed the edge of his tanto on the grass, eyes burning intensely with determination. Izuna, Yashara, Anabi. He wished to see even a ghost reflection of his lost siblings, but all he saw was the blank bark of the tree before him. I will protect them all, no matter what happens. Taking a deep breath, he said the word on which he would live his life. I promise. Next morning, Naruto was quite surprised when he received the summons and had to hastily prepare himself in order to not be late, for that man never tolerated any weakness or lethargy. It was why Naruto found himself donning his finest clan clothes and donning his newly forged armor. He was fully armed in order to be ready for the daily training session that he would definitely have with Naori afterwards, for no matter what the reason, an Uchiha trained every day. When he met the man near the holy temple, the air around them turned frosty as they both looked at each other. And then Tajima did something Naruto never saw him doing, at least with him. He smiled. But it was not one of joy or pride, but that of even greater ambition and plans that lurked in the man's eyes. Naori tells me you have potential, said Tajima frankly, directly getting to the matter without any pleasantries. Well, she's not blind, unlike few people I know, replied Naruto icily, earning a raised eyebrow from his father. Do you hate me, boy? Naruto chose not to answer and settled for giving a fierce glare which made Tajima look at their clan settlement laid out below the mountain on which the temple was situated. You've always been funny, strange and innocent. Believe it or not, I don't hate you. But I don't love you either. The barely 6-year-old boy had known this fact his entire life, but to hear it being said in words was like a sword brutally being jabbed through his heart. And it hurt, but he didn't blink, he didn't tear up, he didn't glare. He just stared. Why? He asked simply, without any accusation or expectation. Tajima's fists clenched, and for a moment Naruto saw the rare pain in those harsh eyes, something the man never did even when his sons died. You took away the one thing I ever wanted above all. You stole her from me, and nothing can ever fill the hole she left behind. The sheer amount of anger and pain present in Tajima's eyes was enough to make his youngest son realize why things had turned out this way between them. Mother, said Naruto sadly. You are so much like her that every day it hurts to see you just standing before me while she remains dead. Hikari was warned about problems with her pregnancy. I told her to abort to keep her safe. But she chose to give you life, forsaking her own. I loved her more than anything in this world, even my sons. But why do you think she chose to die? Asked Tajima harshly. Naruto found it hard to stop himself from tearing up knowing that his mother died for him. It hurt worse than the scorns and ignorance from his family all these years, for it made the hatred his brothers had shown towards him and the distance his father kept from him justifiable. For he killed the one thing they all loved. I don't know, he replied sadly. It's the family name that lives on, it's all that matters. Not you, your honor, or your beliefs. We all serve the clan and the ones above our station. I want you to stop acting like a fool and become the man you were meant to be. Not tomorrow, or the day after, now, said Taijima seriously, looking his son right in the eye. If I do that, will things change between us? Asked Naruto, his voice barely above a whisper. Never. Naruto lowered his gaze to the ground but was stopped when a hand was placed on his shoulder making him look back at his father. But I can be proud of you. He saw nothing but plain honesty reflected in those dark black eyes. This man would never love him, and yet. You're my son, you've always been my son no matter what either of us feel. I will do my duty towards you, but I expect you to do yours as well. For a man to rule he must sometimes do unpleasant things to his enemies and allies alike, but it also earns him wrath just the same. I am able to rule well because Naori does things that may not be possible for me to do, she keeps our clan running from the shadows. You are the younger son, and as such it will be your duty to support Madara who shall succeed me in the same way that Naori supports me now. That is your job. Do that with all you've got and you will make me and this clan proud. Do you understand, Naruto? Asked Tajima seriously. Naruto nodded looking right back at his father. I will never love you, father. But Madara is my brother, my only brother I still have. And there is nothing in this world that I wouldn't do for him, promised Naruto fiercely, earning a cold smirk from the older man. You are an Uchiha, alright. But you will give me what I want. No questions asked, demanded Naruto. If it is within my power to give and if you do your duty well, then you will get all you want. I promise you that, said Tajima honestly. Sparing a final nod, Tajima watched as his son walked away proud and tall. But he never saw the silent tears that fell from the young boy's eyes. Days flew away as quick as the wind, weeks passed in the blink of an eye turning into long months. All the while Naori had stood watching as the boy she adored changed right before her very eyes. Where once shined innocence and joy, was now replaced by a permanent harsh and grim gaze. When he once complained of reading and writing, but now he did what she asked him to without any questions. He did what he was commanded to without blinking an eye. He did one thing and one thing alone. He learned. She had never seen an Uchiha pour so much passion in their training before. Day and night he practiced until he collapsed from exhaustion. It was as if he was possessed by something that drove him forward and forward. In a span of 6 months, he who was once weak now stood as one of the finest water and lightning style ninjutsu fighters. His genjutsu had become even more dangerous with his Sharingan, and while his taijutsu was average unlike Madara who was a monster in that arena. Naruto was the finest swordsman Naori had seen in the entire new generation of Uchihas. He was quick as the wind and flexible like a snake, and when he attacked he would carve his enemies in half. No hesitation, no fear, no mercy. He laughed, he joked, he smiled, but the light in his eyes was gone. And it broke her heart for Naruto had been the only one who had shown her a new possibility the Uchihas could take. He was different, but someone had crushed his spirit in an irreversible way. She had tried talking to him, urged him to open up, but he was always made some silly excuses or said everything was fine. But it wasn't. She had confronted Tajima, for her brother could be the only one capable of reducing Naruto to this state, but all she had gotten in reply was denial of any involvement of Tajima in this matter. Naori knew it was a lie, but she had no proof, and her brother was difficult enough already. However, things were not so dark despite everything. For once in a while, she would catch a glimpse of the old and true Naruto, the kind and gentle boy around Madara. It made her happy to see those two get along better than ever. Madara, despite his busy schedule as clan heir, did his very best to spend time with his brother. Corrected his mistakes and always cheered him up, something which Naori could never do, much to her disappointment. And that was the only thing that gave her hope. She watched the boy seated beside her as they both observed the setting sun in the sky. "Are you afraid? Tomorrow is a big day for you," she said gently. "I am ready," he said, holding his new sword firmly in his right hand. He stiffened when a pair of gentle but strong arms wrapped around his chest from behind, followed by a deeply pleasant scent invading his senses as Naori laid her face next to his cheek. Naori. He still felt strange calling his aunt by her name, knowing it was not proper or respectful. But she had insisted to the point of bonking him on the head whenever he didn't do so. "Are you all right?" she asked worriedly. "I am fine." He winced as she pinched his cheek rather harshly, making him glare at her, but softened on seeing the look in her eyes. "What am I to you, Naori?" he asked, his eyes looking anywhere but at her eyes, afraid of her answer. "You're my nephew, my student, my friend." "Why do you ask that?" she asked with a frown. "Please don't lie to me. Just tell me what you really want from me. You didn't just spend all these months training me for nothing. I am the younger son, a spare, someone important like you would never bother with someone like me unless they want something," he said honestly. The slap that hit his cheek sent a tremors down his entire body, and when he looked back at her, Naruto couldn't help but flinch on seeing the raw fury and hurt in her eyes. "How dare you say that?" she hissed furiously. "Nothing is free in this world, Naori. Everybody always wants something, be they father, the clan, or you. Nobody cared about me for all these years, but now that I have the Sharingan and 3 of my brothers are dead, suddenly everyone starts taking an interest in me. All they want is my power and what I can do for them, maybe except for Madara. So please just tell me what you want," he requested, unable to hide his sadness. She stared wide-eyed at this child, unable to hide her shock or pain on hearing him say such cruel things. What pained her even more was the fact most of it was all true. "Naruto, you're my family. I don't need anything from you," she whispered, and flinched when he glared back. "You abandoned me." A faint memory of a 3-year-old young boy with tears in his eyes came haunting back in her heart. Even after all these years, she had never forgotten the hurt and pain in those young eyes, or the sight of that child crying himself to exhaustion in Izuna's arms as she walked away from their lives to fulfill the duty towards their clan. It had been the right thing to do, the necessary job to keep the Uchiha still in the game of power, but never had she thought the hurt it would bring to that one boy. She had thought him young, that he would forget her, but he never did. "The only thing I had in this world was Izuna and you. Then you just walked away, never looking back. You never loved me, did you? But it's okay. I killed my own mother and my brother, so it's okay. But why does it still hurt?" he asked painfully, clutching his heart with his small hands. "What?" Naori stared in horror and eyes full of tears as he got out of her embrace and stared at the lake with melancholy ever present in his eyes. The very next moment a shadow plopped down beside the young boy, startling them both, and before they could even blink a hard bop connected with Naruto's head, making him wince, as he stared at the harsh glare of his older brother. You have me, you little fool, said Madara fiercely, but frowned when Naruto laughed cynically. How far will you go for me? Izuna always fought for me no matter against whom. You cannot do that, replied Naruto harshly. And what if I do? Asked Madara sternly, all playfulness gone from his eyes. Even against father. Even against our clan. Against the entire world. Naruto's eyes widened when Madara didn't blink, nor did he flinch even for a single second. His eldest brother just stared right into his eyes. I will burn the entire world if it makes you happy and keeps you safe, promised Madara. Why? Asked Naruto sadly, tears brimming in his young eyes. Strong arms wrapped around his smaller form, pulling him into what was the most fiercest embrace of his life. He felt himself crushing, but oddly it only served to lessen his pain as Madara whispered in his ear. Because I can't do this without you. You are my youngest brother, my last brother. If I lose you too, then there is nothing left for me to fight for. And no matter what happens, little brother, I will protect you. Against our enemies, our own clan, and even father. Anybody who threatens you will have to go through me first, and I will kill them all. Naruto stared in shock into those Sharingan eyes as Madara looked back at him with such affection that it warmed his own cold heart. You promise? He asked hesitantly. Want me to pinky swear? Asked Madara with a smirk. Naruto burst out laughing just imagining Madara even remotely doing such a thing. However, he was cut short when Madara again bopped him on the head. But if you continue getting depressed like this, I'll kill you myself, warned Madara. Hi, Papa Bear. Madara's eyebrows twitched violently and he cursed loudly when Naruto bolted out of his arms right across the lake with a mischievous grin on his face. Naori blushed furiously when Madara shamelessly removed his pants and ran after Naruto, yelling out a series of curses while spraying his special water right behind his now terrified brother, who also started yelling out a series of unique curses while trying his very best not to get drenched in the shower Madara threatened to unleash on him. All the while Madara continued laughing maniacally. She couldn't help but realize the fact that Tajima had destroyed his own family. But fate had not been totally cruel, as she saw hope not just for Naruto but for her entire clan in these two boys. Together they could do anything in this world. And maybe it was time for her to amend her own past mistakes and to cherish the one thing that truly mattered in this world. Family. She was fortunate enough to still have one in this cursed world of never-ending warfare. But those amends would have to wait, as she settled for watching her amusing nephews bicker with each other. However, she had not missed the lingering darkness in them both. More so, in Madara's case, if that promise he just made was any indication. That boy was far more powerful than anyone in his generation or the several ones that came before him. One day he could possibly be powerful enough to even defeat the Senju. But in those powerful eyes, she had also seen a great weakness. Madara loved too much. And he truly cared about his youngest and last brother. Naori could only pray these two boys didn't lose each other, for the madness that would follow after such a calamity would destroy both the Uchiha and the world. Next day. The fateful day had come. Probably the most important one in the life of every Uchiha that ever lived. For it was today it would be decided whether they were one of the group or liabilities required to be cast aside. It was Naruto's judgment day. The young boy stood near the lake fully armed and ready with a determined look in his eyes. Almost the entire clan had gathered to watch his rite of passage. For not only was he a future possible clan leader if Madara or Tajima died, but he also had the famed Sharingan. And for many who had not witnessed that holy power in battle before, this was a golden chance. Conflict had reduced considerably after their critical victory over the Senjus 6 months ago, with both great clans taking a step back, leading to a strange momentary peace. Madara would still go out on small missions, but only with a small squad, leaving the rest of the clan to starve to see the Sharingan in battle. And now their wish would be fulfilled, but Naori knew it had only increased Naruto's problems. While he would have to face an established and recognized younger member of their clan, mostly near to his age in combat to either defeat them or at least show a fight worthy enough to be considered strong. That would make Naruto a true Uchiha and an adult despite being only 6 years old. It was a daunting task for every child, but Naruto stood strong because Madara was there watching him like a hawk. The presence of his older brother had stopped any whispering or jabs that were usually thrown at the fighters by the crowd. But everyone's eyes widened when a fully armed Tajima was the one who started walking towards Naruto. "Father, what is the meaning of this?" asked Madara furiously. "I will be his opponent," declared Tajima, earning gasps from their clansmen as murmuring began in the crowd furiously. "That is unfair and against the rules, father. Choose someone near his age just as the law demands," argued Madara, his temper rising at the injustice about to inflicted on his younger brother. Tajima glared. "I make the rules, boy. And you will obey me." Tajima and the entire clan flinched when in the blink of an eye there was a sword placed at the clan head's neck by none other than Madara himself, who had pure murder shining in his eyes. "Long have I watched you inflict injustice on him." "Not anymore," promised Madara. "You fool. Can't you see that I am doing this for you? I'll give a good show to make sure he passes, but also show that he is not as strong as you. The clan cannot be divided between two brothers, only you shall lead the clan and not him," hissed Tajima angrily. "Naruto will never betray me, nor has he ever desired power," said Madara confidently, staring right into his father's cold eyes. "Foolish boy. Maybe your brother doesn't want that, but if he proves himself strong today, then his followers will grow day by day. There are already many in the clan that admire him, and they will one day push Naruto to overthrow you if only to satisfy their own goals. That kind of rivalry will tear the clan apart, and I will not have that. I know the game of power better than you, so fall in line. This is my final warning," said Tajima icily, ready to thrash the boy if he persisted. But Madara didn't relent as his Sharingan activated. Naori was already moving towards her brother and nephew to stop the conflict while the crowd grew only more entranced by the spectacle. "I will fight him." To everyone's surprise and Madara's horror, it was Naruto who said that by unleashing his sword and pointing it at his father. "Naruto. This is my fight, Ni-san. Believe in me," he requested, staring gratefully at his perplexed older brother. Much to Tajima's surprise, Madara lowered his sword but didn't walk away without a warning. "If you do him injustice, then consider my support towards Yugon." Tajima was about to discipline the insolent boy, but Naori's pleading eyes and the stares of the entire clan stopped him. Already Naruto was corrupting the obedient and loyal Madara, and he could not have that. With fury burning in his eyes, Tajima walked towards the battle arena as both him and his son took up positions across the lake. "Try not to dishonor our family," warned Tajima, and was further irritated when Naruto smirked. "Could say the same thing about you, old man. This insolent brat." Without warning, Tajima attacked. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, Fire Release. Great Fireball Technique. A massive raging fireball was unleashed by the Uchiha patriarch, sending it right at his young son, burning water in its way, making steam rise. Madara held his breath when Naruto simply brought his sword forward, making it glow in chakra. The older brother saw Naori smirk proudly. The next moment Naruto vanished in a swirl of leaves. Shunshin. Madara's eyes widened as through his Sharingan he saw Naruto literally carve the fireball in half with his sword and vanish out of the flaming aura with such speed that made Tajima gawk. And he was not done. Sharingan blazing, the boy weaved his hands through an intricate set of hand seals at lightning speed. Sushin. Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Release, Water Dragon Bullet Technique. Two large roaring dragons of water with hateful yellow eyes rose out of the lake and charged right at Tajima, much to the shocked clan head's worry. But experience kicked in as at the last moment Tajima made a hand seal, substituting himself with a nearby log that was available near the shore just in time as the water dragons tore through his position. Naruto whirled backwards, bringing his sword forward to clash against his father's steel as the man now appeared behind him with a fast shunshin. And Tajima made his first mistake. For a brief second he glared hatefully right into Naruto's eyes that now burned with an active Sharingan. The clan spectators gasped when Tajima froze as Naruto disarmed him, followed by beheading the man swiftly, only for him to turn into smoke. Shadow Clone. Even with their Sharingan gone, the Uchihas were able to maintain their dominance across the world due to their skill in the ninja arts. One of their finest traits was their great prowess with ninjutsu, which had led to the development of many powerful techniques. The Shadow Clone was one of them. Only a handful of their clan could perform this forbidden jutsu, and even they could do it to a limited extent. But Naruto's family had always produced the strongest warriors among their clan. It was why they were the leaders and the others followed them. And while Tajima didn't have the Sharingan, it didn't diminish the fact that he was a powerful and dangerous shinobi. Naruto turned back and saw the real Tajima waiting for him with a proud smirk on his face. The son prepared himself as his father raised two fingers, making 4 Mizu Bunshin rise out of the lake. All armed and possessing the same bloodthirsty grins on their faces with the intent of putting their enemy in his right place. And then the clones charged. Naruto charged back. Madara was hardly grinding his teeth watching his father use so much power against Naruto, but surprisingly the young boy was holding up quite well, in fact, if the admirable and proud glances from their clansmen was a proof. Still, it didn't make the older brother any less worried. However, he blinked in surprise when Naruto unleashed sparks of lightning from his left hand as he came near the water clones, making them scream. Within a second, Madara watched with his active Sharingan that his brother's sword carved through the paralyzed clones like butter, making them die. And then the boy jumped high in the air with a ferocious battlecry, descending down on the real Tajima. The brutal kick he received across his gut stole every ounce of air out of the boy as Tajima smirked. But the gesture soon vanished when the Naruto he just kicked dissolved into water.